On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers have the best record in basketball, but I don't think they've hit their peak yet. I'll tell you how I think they can get there on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my new Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, be a friend, tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure your friend is subscribed. We're also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content that comes your way. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Also, Locked On Cavs now does have a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. So the Cavs got a big win on Saturday night over the Milwaukee Bucks. That comes off of a win over a little bit of an injured Orlando Magic team on Friday night. No Paolo Banchero in that one, obviously, as he's going to be out for the next several weeks for the Magic. But the Cavs are one of two undefeated teams remaining in basketball, the other being the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Cavs are 7-0 on the year. They're off to the best start in basketball. They've been very, very impressive. I want to talk today about how they've gotten to 7-0, what's gone right for them, both on offense and defense, as well as what they can still improve upon. Because despite the fact that they've looked so good, and for the most part, 5 of these games have really been blowouts that the Cavs have not had to stress in the fourth quarter of, I still think that this is far from a finished product of a basketball team. I still think that there are plenty of areas where this team can improve. So I do want to start with what they're doing well, because offensively, this team has been, I think, everything that anyone could have hoped it would be under Kenny Atkinson. Like, the roster didn't change very much from last year to this year. I mean, Jalen Tyson, Luke Travers, JT Thor, 2 guys on 2 ways. Obviously, Tyson was the 20th overall draft pick. Those are the only 3 newcomers to this roster. None of those 3 really have had an impact in any of the games, in either of the 2 games, I guess, that have been close games. Those 3 have not determined wins and losses for the Cavs. So the roster hasn't changed. For all intents and purposes, this is the same exact team that we saw last year. But we're seeing a much different version of them, and Kenny Atkinson deserves a lot of credit. So here are the things that I think Kenny has done really well offensively to elevate the Cavs to a level that, if they would have played like this last year, I think we're having different conversations right now. But the Cavs offensively, so far, have an offensive rating of 121.9. That is good for second in the NBA behind the Golden State Warriors, who the Cavs will see Friday night in Cleveland. And it's early. If that offensive rating drops a little bit throughout the course of the year, that wouldn't surprise me. But this team, I think, has all the tools to be a top 5 offense in the NBA when it's all said and done. I don't see any reason why they can't, as long as they stay healthy. Last year, the Cavs were 114.7 on offense. They were a very middle-of-the-pack offensive team. This year, despite the fact that, if you watch this team, you can still say, okay, well, I think they could be doing this better, or this is one minor tweak they could still make. And there are signs when watching them play offense that they don't have this all figured out. And it wouldn't be fair to expect them to have everything figured out offensively, because this is a new system, and these guys just started in late August, early September, when the team reconvened to start going like the player-led workouts and stuff. That's when they started picking this up. It's not as if they've been in this system for years, right? So they have room to grow there. which is a super encouraging thing, obviously. The Cavs have changed the way they play, too, in terms of pace. Last year, the Cavs were 24th out of 30 teams in the NBA in pace. This year, they are currently 11th, which is fine. I think that's a perfect place for this team to be. But last year, their pace was 97.6. This year, they're at 100.86. So they're on average getting more than 3 more possessions per game. And I think a lot of that can be they're running out in transition more. Like last year, they were averaging 14.8 fast break points per game. This year, they're at 18.6, which is third in the NBA. And I think a big part of the Cavs, playing at a better pace this year is the fact that they've gotten out in transition so much more. It's not just that they're getting into their stuff quicker on offense, which I do think has been the case for the most part. I think they can get a little bit better at that. But I do think that they've done a much better job getting out in transition, where last year, the Cavs averaged 14.8 fast break points per game. This year, and it's early, it's only 7 games. Like, all of these numbers are small sample size type numbers. But this year, the Cavs are at 18.6 fast break points per game, which is the third highest number in the NBA. That's a really good place to be. And I think with what we're seeing, I think all three numbers that I've brought up so far, I think Evan Mobley is the biggest reason for the increase in them. I think we've seen him in transition more frequently, where I think he was able to do it last year, but I think he's been more empowered to grab rebounds and just go. It doesn't matter who it's against. Like, there were a couple possessions on Saturday night against Giannis Antetokounmpo where he was able to go and get downhill and try and get to the basket. And Giannis is going to be a tough matchup for him at this point in his career. I don't know that it will always be that way. But at this point in his career, I think Giannis is obviously a very tough matchup for him. He's a tough matchup for everybody. But I think Mobley's done that. I think with how aggressive he has been with the basketball in his hands, not only in those transition opportunities I just spoke about, but also in the half-court situations too, where he's getting downhill, he's getting to the basket, he's being more decisive. I did think Saturday night he wasn't decisive enough at times, but then as the game went on, I thought he did get more decisive. I would have liked to have seen him shoot a few more three-pointers. Like, I think he only took one three-pointer in that game against Milwaukee, and I thought he had a couple of opportunities to take some other ones, and I thought it was a little disappointing he didn't take those. But overall, like, it's just hard to be mad about what this team is doing offensively. I think that the way Kenny Atkinson is using the personnel for the Cavaliers offensively is night and day from what it was last year, and I think that's why when you look at, okay, this is the same group of guys. The roster has not changed, and I understand Max Strus has not played at all this year, which theoretically should just be another boost that can help this offense get to another level when he does return from that ankle injury. But the way Kenny Atkinson is using guys being in different positions on offensively than they were before, the amount of movement we're seeing on offense for the Cavs, I think those are the biggest differences. And one of the other things that I did want to highlight while talking about what's working offensively, last year when the Cavs were fully healthy, Sam Merrill really wasn't a rotation player. Like, he was kind of the first or maybe even sometimes second guy on the outside looking in, where he wasn't guaranteed minutes every night. And one of the first things that we noticed this year from the Cavs, Sam Merrill's been one of the first guys off the bench in every single game. I don't think he's the sixth man, but I don't think he's anything past the eighth man. Like, he's definitely seventh or eighth in that pecking order. He's playing a ton of minutes for the Cavs, this is the biggest opportunity Sam has had in his career. I think that despite a rough first 5 games shooting, where I think going into that game against Orlando, he was shooting like 30% from three. Against Orlando, he was shooting like 30% from three. And the last 2 games, he's had good shooting nights where, he hit 5 against Milwaukee on Saturday night, and that he's now up to 40%. But Sam Merrill's been a difference maker on both ends of the floor. Offensively, he's not just out there to be a shooter, where in the past, if Sam Merrill was on the floor, you knew who he was shooting the basketball. Like, that's who he was going to be. Now, he's got the basketball in his hands a little bit more. No one's going to confuse him with a high-volume playmaker, but it's also unfair to expect him to just stand in the corner and not do anything, and that be the way to maximize his effectiveness. Where he's had some two-man game stuff with Evan Mobley, where he's initiated some stuff offensively. Not a ton, but some stuff. And I think that the gravity he has as a shooter is a big boost to this offense. It's a big boost to the amount of space on the floor. Sam has so far been third on the team in plus minus. When Sam is on the floor, the Cavs have been awesome. The only guys that the Cavs have had on the floor and outscored their opponents by more than Sam Merrill has been Karis LeVert and Evan Mobley. Karis has gotten off to a fantastic start to the season. Obviously, dealing with that knee injury is questionable for tonight's game against Milwaukee, but Karis has gotten off to a great start to the season. Sam Merrill has been awesome off of the bench, and that's something Kenny Atkinson finding ways to use him differently. I think that's a really good thing that he's doing. Now, there are more things going right for the Cavs than just what they're doing offensively. I want to talk about defense a little bit and where I still think they can improve next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. The month of November is a month to give thanks. It's a time to give thanks to the special people in your life, maybe a significant other, maybe your parents, maybe a sibling. Whatever it is, there are people to be thankful for in your life. And this is really the month that, for the most part, we remind those people just how thankful we are for them. But there's another person that probably didn't come to your mind when I just said what I just said, and that person is yourself. November should be a time to be thankful for ourselves too, because it can be difficult to remind ourselves at times that we are trying our best to make sense of everything that's going on. And in the world we live in right now, that's not always an easy thing to do. So use this as your reminder to send some thanks to people in your life. Like I said, parents, significant others, siblings, friends, whatever it may be, but include yourself when you do that. One way you can do that is therapy. Therapy can be a great tool to help remind yourself how important you are and how to make sense of everything. So if you are thinking of starting therapy, I'm here to tell you to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. I just mentioned how crazy things can be, especially this time of year. Having therapy suited to your schedule is something that's very, very important. So just go fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA to get 10% off your first month. Again, head on over to BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can check out the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs. If you're watching this video right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content wherever it comes your way. It's proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Cavs have been awesome offensively, which I think people expected the Cavs to get to that point at some point this year. I don't know if people, and myself included in this, I thought the Cavs would be really good offensively. I didn't think the Cavs would be really good offensively 7 games into the season. I thought it would take much more time than it has for this team to click, which is why part of the reason I think there are still things that this team can improve upon. But I also think they're ahead of schedule. Now, defensively, the Cavs again have been really good. So far this year, the Cavs are 4th in the NBA in defense. They have a defensive rating of 107.7. So that means per 100 possessions, they are allowing 107.7 points. That's the 4th best number in the NBA. Last year, the Cavs defensive rating was 112.1 and finished 7th in the NBA. I think this defensive number will come up a little bit, but there's no reason for me to believe that the Cavs are not going to be a really good defensive team again. Like there's no reason to think anything other than that. So there was a play that I think is worth bringing up just as an example here. And I don't have the clip. I couldn't I couldn't remember exactly when it was during the game, but there was a possession in the second half on Saturday night when Damian Lillard ran a 1-5 pick and roll and got Jarrett Allen switched out onto him on the perimeter. And as you would expect, especially when Damian Lillard is having as great of a night as he had on Saturday against the Cavs, as you would expect, Dame was able to get by Jarrett Allen. But normally, when you're able to get by a center, if you have a 1-5 pick and roll and you get that center switched out onto your guard, like for instance, if Donovan Mitchell switches out, gets a center switched out onto him, and he is able to blow past that center, get to the rim, typically there's not a rim defender waiting there for you. Well, Damian Lillard blew past Jarrett Allen, and who was there waiting for him at the rim? None other than Evan Mobley. Mobley blocked his shot. Like, those are the types of things that we have seen in the past. I think they are probably switching a little bit more than they used to on defense. But those are the types of things that we're used to seeing. Just if Jarrett can't get it done, Evan will. If Evan doesn't get it done, Jarrett will. And just that's how this Cavs team is going to be at the rim. But this team defensively is going to continue to be good. And I think it might even continue to get a little bit better. And one of the guys that has stood out to me on defense so far has been Darius Garland. Like, no one is going to ever confuse Darius Garland with Gary Payton. No one's going to confuse him with Marcus Smart. He's not going to be ever thought of as a shutdown perimeter defender. That's not who he is. But I think that his effort level on defense has been pretty good this year. And I thought it was very telling after Dean Wade, I don't even want to say struggled against Damian Lillard in the first half on Saturday night, because Dame was just like, he was bombing away from three. He hit a ton of shots. He's a really good player. Like, that's going to happen. But I thought it was telling that either Darius asked to guard Damian Lillard, or the Cavs thought it was in their best interest to put him on Damian Lillard in the second half of that game. I don't know that happens previously. I don't know that that's something that we see in the last couple of years with Darius Garland. And Dame is still going to find ways to score. But I thought that the effort level that we have seen, not just on Saturday night, but through the first 7 games of the season from Darius Garland on defense, has been really, really good. One of the other things, this gets back to what I was talking about in the first segment with Sam Merrill. He drew 2 charges against the Bucks on Saturday night. And like Darius Garland, he's not going to be somebody that is thought of as a lockdown defender. But Sam is a pretty good defender for somebody his size. He knows where to be at all times. And I think that having him on the floor has not only benefited the Cavs offensively, but I think it's benefited the Cavs on defense too. I do think that they're a better team on defense. And I don't have his net rating pulled up in front of me right now when he's on the floor. I can pull that up real quick. But I do think that the Cavs are a team that's just better when Sam Merrill is on the floor. Like, that's why I do think that net rating is so high, because Sam Merrill's been awesome, right? That is something that goes in. Darius Garland's been awesome. Kenny Atkinson's been awesome. Like, they haven't had to do very many things to change who they are defensively. One of the things I do think they're probably switching a little bit more, but this team was always going to be a good defensive team as long as they're bought in. And it's very clear that they are bought in, right? This locker room, you can tell, gets along. This team, to me, has all the feelings of a team that can be very special. I don't know what the end of this year is going to look like, but I can tell from the first 7 games that we've watched, the Cavs are a team that's going to have a special regular season. It's going to be a fun regular season. They're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. That's who this Cavs team is going to be. Now, they might not win tonight. They might not start off 8-0. But this Cavs team is just absolutely awesome. And to get back to Merrill, the Cavs have a defensive rating of 101 when he's on the floor, which is the 3rd best, really 2nd best on the team, because Craig Porter has not played much. So, okay, the 3rd best on the team. The only guys with better defensive ratings are Donovan Mitchell, who actually leads the team. The Cavs have a 98.2 defensive rating when he's on the floor. I think part of that's because he's been playing his minutes with Evan Mobley this year. Like, when those two share the floor, the Cavs have a defensive rating of 99.4, which is obviously very good. Karis LeVert, and Sam Merrill. I think he's been a big key on both sides of the floor. But I think that defensively, this is something that's not going to change. So what do I think the Cavs can do to improve where they're at? Well, I'll tell you about that next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. I've told you all about FanDuel for a long time now. Why? Because FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and you need to be ready to tackle the NFL action there. You need to be ready to tackle the NBA action there. Before the season, I started talking about how much I thought the win total for the Cavs at 48.5 was a little bit low. And if I were a betting man, the over made a lot of sense to me. Well, the Cavs have gotten off to a 7-0 start. They're looking to win their 8th consecutive game tonight against Milwaukee at home. That win total on FanDuel, like I said, 48.5 to begin the season. It is up to 52.5 now. So if you got in on the over before the season, like I said I thought was smart, you're feeling pretty good right now. And as far as the 52.5 number goes, I still like the over. I think this team, they're going to win 55 games. I think Boston will be the only team that wins more, but I think the Cavs are going to win 55 games, and I think they're going to be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. If you think that to be true, if you agree with me, head on over to FanDuel. Plus, if you're a new customer right now, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So head on over to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com today to join. And like I said, you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. $150 in bonus bets sounds awesome. All you got to do, make a $5 bet, win that $5 bet. If you're a new customer, $150 in bonus bets are yours. So head on over to FanDuel.com today, FanDuel.com, and you can get started. Never miss a moment with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. If you're subscribed, make sure they're subscribed. Also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. So the Cavs can get better. They're not a perfect basketball team. They're a really good basketball team. They can be a great basketball team, but there still are areas to improve. And one of the things that I think the Cavs should be trying to do to improve is shoot more three-pointers. Like, that is the one area where I thought they would be near the top of the league in. With Kenny Atkinson, so much talk about wanting to shoot more three-pointers and play at a higher pace. And maybe part of this is 5 of the games they've played in have been blowout games and they haven't actually had to. And the Cavs have been a very good team shooting from outside. They're shooting 40.6% so far from outside, which is the second best mark in the NBA through the first, 2 weeks of the season. But the Cavs are only taking 36.6 three-point attempts per game. That ranks 17th in the NBA. I definitely would have guessed that despite playing 2 bigs, they'd be taking somewhere between like 43 and 47 per game. I thought we would see them be at least in the top 10. So they're 17th at 36.6 attempts. Phoenix is 10th at 40 attempts. That might not sound like a big difference, but 4 attempts per game is pretty substantial. Like, that is a thing that's an opportunity for 12 additional points. Now, you have to make all 4 of those. We all know that's not going to happen on a regular basis, but I would like to see the Cavs boost up that total. I think that is the thing that can be, it's the lowest hanging fruit, because I think really everything else they're doing has been really good. And it's not something that they need to all of a sudden start shooting 53s a game, because I just don't think that's who this team is. But I think a higher volume of threes would make sense. Now, this week is another tough week for the Cavs. Talked about last week how, matchups with Milwaukee and Orlando, the Lakers, the Knicks a week ago, how difficult of a week that was. And the Cavs got through that 4-0, and it's very impressive. This week, Milwaukee again. The Bucks are going to come out, I think, incredibly desperate tonight. I thought they looked very desperate on Saturday for a win. Now, the one caveat is, as I record this Sunday evening, Giannis Antetokounmpo is questionable with a right adductor strain. So if he doesn't play in that game, one, I think the Bucks are still going to be very desperate. But that's a game that the Cavs go from being favored by like 4.5 points to probably favored by like 11.5 points. That's a game that goes from, okay, this is a challenge to the Cavs need to take care of business type of game. The Pelicans on Wednesday, I think that'll be interesting. Giannis is questionable for Sunday's game that they're playing with a hamstring injury, so I wonder if he's going to be able to play in that game on Wednesday. The Warriors have been quietly one of the best teams in basketball too, despite not having Steph Curry for a stretch here. I would imagine he's back by Friday, but that's been a good team. And then the Cavs will close out the week with the Brooklyn Nets, who the Nets have been not the worst team in basketball, which I think a lot of people, including myself, expected them to be. I will have later today a second podcast, as I've been doing every Monday so far throughout the season, doing that sort of whip around show where I talk to somebody that covers each team the Cavs are playing this week. So I'm going to talk Bucks, going to talk Pels, going to talk Warriors, and we're going to talk Brooklyn Nets. So look out for that a little bit later on today. And you know how you can know when that is available? You can know if you are on YouTube, if you hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and if you hit the notification bell. That notification bell is going to do what? It's going to tell you exactly when that next episode of Locked On Cavs goes up on YouTube. Also, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Let's grow this thing. You guys have been awesome. This has been such a treat to do the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't think there's a more exciting team in the NBA to talk about than the Cavs, and I'm so happy I get to talk about this team with you guys every single day. So, like I said, I'll be back a little bit later today with a second edition of Locked On Cavs, and then I'll have something for you tomorrow coming off of tonight's game at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse against the Milwaukee Bucks. So like I said, be a friend, tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast, available anywhere you get your podcasts, and I will be back with another episode coming up in a little bit.